Welcome to another episode of Death, Taxes, Money, and the Law, presented by Axiom Founders Family Office. And in our name is the word founders. So Armando and myself, a few years back, we decided to focus on what I consider the backbone of this incredible country, people who take a chance on starting a business. One of the issues that we saw is that business owners, we have a study that is readily available for you, but the studies show that 90% of business owners are unhappy after they exit, and that's due to a lot of different situations, topics, and we're going to talk about that today. But me and Armando said, hey, that's a problem. Let's do something about it. One of the biggest problems is they're not planning soon enough. So part of what we saw was that they kind of look at it as a transaction. They don't look at it as something that takes 18 months, 24 months, 36 months, and maybe you ought to be planning for exit all the time. It's good business strategy. So today, as part of our free webinar series, we're going to talk about, or we're going to go over our checklist, which is what you need to be thinking about, what issues you should consider when planning for the sale, disposition or succession of my business. And as a reminder, our big event is coming up. Our Scottsdale Founders Forum Fall 2025 edition is going to be the first week in November. And maybe Armando, maybe you talk about why we started that event and
Yeah,
kind of what it is and what we talk about.
yeah. So what we found, of course, as Tom, as you know, is that people who own companies, often their biggest asset, if you look at their balance sheet, the family's balance sheet, the biggest asset is that company. Maybe 80%, 90% or more of their net worth is in that one company. So, of course, as a wealth advisory firm focused on founders and their families, we want to make sure we're looking at all the facets of their wealth and helping to preserve it, protect it, minimize taxes on everything. So and the way you and I look at it, Tom, is we have to be aware of that business. We're not going to wait till it sells and then try to grab the money. That's not what we're here for. Instead, we're here to look at that asset, that valuable asset, help to increase that value. And that's what this checklist helps to talk about, to increase that value, get it ready for a transition to the next owner. And that whole process that we go through helps to the owner get the highest value and the best outcome for their family when all the appropriate steps are taken. And we began this Scottsdale Founders Forum event because we had a client years ago who went through an exit. And I remember talking with the tax CPA in the middle of November. Uh, the goal that this client had was to close the sale on December or before the end of the year, which would have been, of course, December 31st. And I remember I called the CPA and said, hey, our joint client, so and so, who's about to sell, they're very generous people. They're going to have the biggest tax hit ever when they sell this company. And I know they're very charitable people. They can offset some of those taxes, of course, by giving monies to charity and other strategies that are in philanthropy and charitable ways to get there. Have you had a chance, CPA, to talk with them about how they can do that this year to decrease that tremendous tax burden they're going to have? And his answer floored me. His response floored me. He said, no, Armando, they're too busy right now. I'm going to wait till it closes and then we'll talk about that. That sale closed on December 30th. The next day was a half day, if that, because it was New Year's Eve. And I thought to myself, never again is one of our clients going to go through that kind of a enormous tax event without the appropriate team, without the appropriate tax guidance to help get the best outcome for them when it's all said and done. And boom, that's where the Scottsdale Founders Forum was created. We now have hosted, this will be our sixth one, Tom, I think it is,
Yeah.
that we'll have. So I'm really excited for November 6th to come up because I feel like they get better and better as we do more and more of these events to help that founder navigate that first time exit.
And a key word you mentioned there was team. So as we well know, we're in Scottsdale, Arizona. Private equity is flying out of here. We got 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞 over at Scottsdale Airport, Deer Valley Airport. They're coming out here with stacks of cash, ready to buy any kind of business, but they have their team. And I'm not against private equity making money, but holy cow, these business owners that put 10, 20, 30 years sacrificing blood, sweat, and tears, working all these hours, what we want to do is make sure these business owners keep as much money as they possibly can in their pockets. We're not against paying the taxes, but we want to pay the least amount to Uncle Sam. Because the more money that these business owners keep in their pockets, that's more money that comes back into the community, into our churches, into our local events, etc. Maybe they start new businesses. So we want a win-win-win situation for everybody. It's estimated that close to $15 billion is going to be, actually trillion dollars, is going to be exchanged over the next 10 years from businesses exiting and giving it to the next generation or selling or some kind of exit. So we want to make sure that they have their team. So Armando, let's kind of go through this checklist and let's talk about some of the team members that we work with to go through this checklist and some of the things that business owners need to be thinking about.
Yeah, some of the key things in terms of that key, Tom, you and I both spent many years preparing taxes as licensed CPAs in public accounting. I had my license over 30 years, had my own practice 14 years, and sold that in 2007. But as you and I both know, taxes take the biggest bite out of a person's income. And the more money you make, the bigger percentage it takes out of your income. So as we think about that exit team, must have a tax CPA as part of that team. That is a critical role for everyone going through an exit. Us, the wealth advisory firm, our role is to look at the overall picture for the family and what is the family really trying to get to. So have to have that wealth advisor as well. Have to have the merger and acquisition attorney. That is a specialized attorney who understands the buying and selling of companies. That's not your DOI lawyer, not your divorce lawyer. It might not even be your regular business lawyer if he or she doesn't have the right M&A expertise. So you've got to have the M&A attorney on board. You've got to have the tax on board. You've got to have the wealth advisory on board. That's us. And you've got to have the broker and or the investment banker. And the broker and investment banker, also sometimes called intermediaries, they're the ones who are going to take that business, package it up, and then take it through an auction process to help the seller get the best deal and the best outcome for them. So they're basically a broker selling your company. But that's the team: the tax, the attorney, the wealth advisory, the investment banker. That's the team that needs to be part of that exit for the business owner.
Right. Yeah. So in this first section up here, this is a big section. Succession and continuation issues. This first one right here is how dependent is the business on the owner? We see this a lot where the owners, they think that the business is worth X amount, but if they are the primary driver of the business and the business is solely dependent or primarily dependent on them, well, then when private equity or outside firms are looking to buy, they don't see that as attractive to their model.
No, they don't. They don't, because what one investment banker told me, the way he described it, I thought was so perfect. He said, what the buyer wants to buy is a cash making machine.
There you go.
He said, think about that monkey with the two, what are those things called? A monkey slapped together to make the sound, Tom, the drummer.
Right.
That tin thing, he said, think about that monkey just clapping and making noise. They want to buy that monkey, and when he's clapping, he's producing cash. That's what the buyer wants to buy. So it makes sense. If the owner is going to be gone and the owner is the one who's driving everything in that company, they don't have a monkey make a noise producing cash. That's not what they want to buy. They want to buy a cash making machine.
Right. The next question here, do you wish to have children or any other family members take over this? We deal with this a lot. So this is part of the value we bring to the table. We want you to exit the business in the most efficient manner, which also includes keeping your family relationships still going. We see a lot of businesses who maybe have children some of them are in the business, some of them are outside the business. And if you're going to exit, how do you make it equitable for all members of the family? That's part of the expertise, or we'll bring in experts that will help structure that exit. Maybe touch on that a little bit, Armando.
Yeah, so that really gets to succession planning and the family. Every family is different. So you can't just go in with a recipe or a checklist and tell the family, here's what we're going to do. That's not how it works. Every family, every relationship is different. And as the family that owns that company, that husband, that wife, that couple running the business, they are the ones who are the drivers, and they have to communicate to us, and we have to get that from them what they're really trying to get to as they go through this exit or this succession. What impact on adult son number one, adult son number two, adult son number three, and then maybe the daughter or the niece. So we want to make sure that we respect the owners of the business in their decisions, and we help them to make that happen as they navigate this.
Right. Next one is, do you plan to remain involved in the business after you sell or retire? A lot of private equity or other firms that they kind of want you to stay on board. So we need to make sure that those deals are structured correctly. It's not always an all or nothing. So we've had numerous business owners that maybe sell 40%, 50%, 60%. So a lot of times business owners, they think it's all or nothing, not the case.
Right.
Valuation and appraisal issues. Do you need to review whether you should hire outside experts to help with the valuation of business? We recently started offering business valuations at our firm, but it is not an official valuation. So part of our job is to decide when an official valuation is needed because they're not always cheap, are they, Amado?
No, they can be pretty darn pricey, 15, 20, $25,000 to get a valuation. That's a big ticket item for most people. So, us as a wealth advisory firm focused on founders, and the biggest asset is this company, we have to have a general idea, a pretty darn good idea. What is that company really worth? Is that going to put them into a taxable estate? So we don't want them to go through an actual formal valuation process until they really need it. So we can use the tools that we have to get a very close approximation for our planning purposes. And for planning purposes, it's right on target for that purpose.
This is a huge one here. Do you need to review ways you can potentially improve the valuation appraisal of your business? So our new business valuation services gives us a decent idea of what the business is valued, and also it compares it against your competitors. And then when you exit, you often get a multiplier. Maybe it's 2 to 8 times revenue. So if we can get your business at the higher end of those multipliers, holy cow, that could be a huge difference for our business owners, what they keep in their pockets. And then
Right.
we have the experts, fractional CFOs or business coaches that we could bring in. Yes, you got to pay them a little bit of money, but holy cow, if they can increase that multiplier, we're talking millions and millions and millions of dollars difference sometimes when you go to exit that business.
That's right. And Tom, let me just touch on that as well. The multiplier, you'll hear about a multiple, you'll hear about EBITDA, and all those terms can get very confusing. So what I would say to the business owner is think about this. You have profit that comes out of your company every year. That profit with some adjustments becomes EBITDA, which is an acronym for something that doesn't really matter for right now. But think about your profit. That profit times some number is going to be the sale value. Could be 3 times your profit, 4 times your profit, 5 times your profit. So, Tom, what you just touched on about the multiplier, if the multiplier goes from a 3 to a 4, it might sound like a little bit of a difference, but it can be millions of dollars of a difference in the sales price with just a few adjustments necessary to make that happen. And that's why we want the owners of the business to understand what exit needs to look like, and we want to help them navigate the correct steps. So at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, they really have the highest value on that business, and they sell it without any regrets if they want to sell the company.
And that's why we hammer the message that the exit planning is just good business strategy. So a lot of our business owners, including even in our own industry, CPAs, tax planners, they said, "Hey, I'm done. I've had enough." But when we go in and we show them the business valuation, and then with maybe a few tweaks here and there, they can increase that multiplier. They might entice them to stay on for another year, maybe 18 months. Because sometimes the changes that are made, they're not huge changes, but just the simple things that clean up a little bit here and there, or bringing in and maybe some outside eyes to kind of look at that business and make a few tweaks here and there. Um,
Yep, exactly.
And then we design this checklist. We send this out. It's free. It's available, but it's designed to where if you answer yes to any of these questions, that's a planning opportunity from our side. So again, valuation appraisal issues. The compensation packages, do you need to look at that? Does your business income fluctuate? Is it inconsistent? That's pretty common with a lot of our business owners. So how do we plan accordingly? Does a large portion of your business revenue come from a small base of customer clients? Well, that doesn't look so good from people that are looking to buy your business because if 70% of your revenues come from two different clients and one of them or both of them decides to leave, well, that's a problem.
Right. A big problem. And
Right.
we'll touch on a lot of these things too, as well, at our event on November 6th, our Scottsdale Founders Forum. Uh, Anyone who is, if you have a business and you're listening and you've got some questions come to your mind as you hear us having this conversation, you probably should come to our Scottsdale Founders Forum event. There'll be more of this and be more experts there as well. And you'll be able to hear and learn and ask questions of them at the event.
Here's a big one right here. We're dealing with this right now. We're coming up to year end. Some of our business owning clients think about exiting. How about tax issues, Armando? Maybe touch on one or two big tax issues or tax planning opportunities that are
Yeah,
available.
and I'll touch on what are called company retirement plans. Everyone has heard of a 401k, everyone's heard of an IRA. What people often don't understand, though, is that when you have your own business, you have the IRA and the 401k, yes, but there are a couple of other types of plans that are really, really similar, and they actually follow the same law. But when you have your own business and the conditions are right, you can pull those into play and use them and have some tremendous, tremendous tax benefits by using them. In the general term, the industry term is called qualified plans. Well, really, to most people, that's what you might call a pension plan or you might call a retirement plan. But these are plans that only work in businesses. And small businesses, when the stars align, they can be incredibly impactful from a tax benefit, from putting big chunks of money towards your retirement. So a lot of good reasons to make sure that you understand that these are tools that you can use in your company.
Right. Yeah. And right now we're kind of dealing with this one up here. What is the entity of your business? Is it the right from a tax perspective? So you got partnerships, S corps, C corporations. Everybody knows LLCs. That's more from a liability perspective. So what we do is we look at our business owning clients. Is it the right structure? Right now we got a client whose clients or client that's exiting. They're part of this qualified small business stock. So because they were a C corp, well, the tax code is very friendly towards businesses and especially towards a C corp. They have a 1202, which allows you to defer some of that tax liability. And it could be $10 million in tax liability you can defer. And if you start gifting that, stacking them, you're talking 10, 20, $30 million that could be tax liability that could be deferred. That's a huge savings. So
Yeah, the
back
numbers
to, do
can
you
be.
have the appropriate experts that are knowledgeable in these different areas that can know the tax code? Well, we kind of knew about this tax code. We were excited to see that as an opportunity, but then we had to outsource to our experts that are more in tune with as far as what is a 1202, what qualifies for 1202. So they're doing a feasibility study right now for that to see if this client could save 10, 20, 30, 40, $50 million in taxes.
Yeah, man, I'll touch on that as well, Tom. The term you hear sometimes is called issue spotting. So we are not the experts in 1202, but we have to understand enough to spot a potential opportunity and spot a potential threat. So in this particular case you were talking about, the opportunity was a tremendous tax savings using a very specific tax code. And so we spoke with a tax CPA who understood that code section and spoke with a tax attorney who understood the code section. Because it appeared that it might be a little bit of a gray area, we chose to go with the attorney because the attorney is the one who can actually interpret law, and the attorneys have this client attorney privilege, which CPAs don't. So for for several reasons. We brought in the tax attorney, had the client engage them, hire them so that they could dig deep into that particular tax code section and see if it'll work for them. If it works for them, it will be a tremendous amount of tax savings that will way pay whatever that attorney charges for his fees, way make up for it without question.
Yeah, and that kind of brings us back to that word you started us out on, that's team. So part of what we did for this client is in our conference room, we brought the CPA in, we brought the attorney in. You were there, Armando, I was there, and we also whiteboarded the client's situation, saying, hey, this is what they have, these are the assets they have, this is what the client is trying to accomplish. What are your thoughts? What are your ideas? What are your top strategies? And based out of that meeting came this idea that, or strategy that you talked about.
Right.
So, anyways, that's another incredible episode of Death, Money, Taxes, Law. This is just a taste of part of the information that we can provide during these webinars. Also, again, reiterate that we have our Scottsdale Founders Forum coming up November 6th. It's going to be a virtual event. So be looking out for posts on our social media and emails announcing it. And also it's an opportunity to come see the experts that we have vetted that help our clients, as you said, have the right team on their side.
Yep, exactly. November 6th, if you have a company and you're wondering about your own exit plan, your succession plan, you haven't gone through an exit before, please do yourself a favor. Please log in, sign up for this event, November 6th, 3:30 until 5. You will not be sorry that you did because you will learn a tremendous amount from people who charge a lot per hour for their time, and it won't cost you a dime. Please come.
Awesome. All right, I'm stopping.